Ahoy folks, and welcome back to Broadside Gaming with me, Zug. So, we are going to do some updated Arbites videos, and I do apologise for the lack of guides over the last sort of week and a half. My internet has been dead. But I am back, and let's jump in and take a look at what we're dealing with today. And let's have a look. But of course, it's the Arbites, and at the moment, we're going to be using, to be honest, you can basically interweave any goddamn weapons you want with this. I'm not going to drag this out over 6 different guides with just weapon swaps. You can basically pick whatever the hell you want. You can take the shock maul, you can take the crusher, you can take the shock maul and suppression shield, you know, whatever. I would suggest not taking the, generic weapons. I would take the Arbites specific ones. Of course, the crusher is generic as well, but it works very well for this build. Same goes for the ranged weapons, and of course I will give you the stats, modifiers, blessings, perks, blah 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 for each of them. So, for the moment though, we are using just the shock maul, which is the Mark III version. We are dumping out mobility because here on Broadside Gaming we do not give a rat's arse about mobility or defense. The best offense is offense, you know. Perk wise, we're going with unyielding and carapace. Blessings wise, we're going with high voltage and execution. You can swap out execution for confident strikes. I'll give you a look on that on screen, just so if you've never seen it before, you know what you're looking at. Where the hell is it? There it is. Confident strikes. 8% toughness on chained hit. Basically, it makes you a lot tankier. But if you want to go for damage, obviously pick up high voltage and execution. If you want to go for something a little bit safer, take confident strikes. Now, for the secondary weapon, our ranged weapon, I'm using the subductor, shot, pistol, and riot shield at the moment because it's a hilarious weapon. Again, the dump stat is mobility because we don't care about mobility. Everything else, damage, reload speed, critical bonus, and penetration, lol, is all at 80. Perk wise, we're going with unyielding and flak. Unyielding because this allows us to disengage from combat and happily take pot shots at a monstrosity that we can't get into melee with, and flak because it's the most prevalent armor type in the game and this is going to give us the most damage against that target. Blessings wise, we're going with no respite for up to 20% damage on hits, staggered enemies, and scales with stagger. Full bore, 20% strength for 5 seconds when every pellet in the shot hits the same enemy. Lovely, lovely, lots of damage. Hero wise, we are using 2 twinned toughness curos with toughness, stamina regeneration, and damage resistance gunners, and we are using a stamina curio for +3 stamina with toughness, stamina regeneration, and corruption resistance. Now, you can switch out the corruption resistance for whatever the hell you want if you're not doing, say, Havoc or Auric. So you can put more damage resistance gunners, you can put damage resistance snipers, you can put, I don't know, toughness regeneration speed, but that's not super great, but, you know, it's there if you want it. So that is the gear, but as I promised, I will give you the other alternative weapons. So the crusher, I'll give you 2 ways of building it. As you can see, the modifiers on both are exactly the same: damage, crowd control, power output, and penetration. Lol. Defenses are dump. And on one of them, we're going with unyielding and carapace. This is going to be for hunting down bosses and dealing with crusher packs. And the other one is flak and unyielding. It's going to give us the most damage spread across all mobs, and of course unyielding to help deal those pesky bosses. Blessings wise, they're both the same with skull crusher and slaughterer. This is the optimum build for the crusher. This is just going to give you insane amounts of damage. Now for the shock maul and suppression shield, again, unyielding and carapace are our perks on one of them, and on the other one is flak unyielding. So just pick how you really want to play, to be honest. Flak and unyielding is generally the safest bet. If you're more confident, go with carapace and unyielding. As you can see, the modifiers are exactly the same again: damage, power output, crowd control, and penetration, lol, and defenses are dumped because screw defense. So I am using the Mark IV, and there's a very good reason why I'm using the Mark IV, because I prefer it. And that's pretty much the reason. And also, it basically works exactly the same as the Ogren shield, which I'm very, very used to using. So as you can see, all the heavy attacks, it is a big shield bash and an overhead strike. And don't forget, if you're using the suppression shield, you've got your lovely, lovely stun, which is the extra action button. For me, that's mouse button 4. Is it not going to let me use it because I'm in here? Of course it's not, because that would be too useful. Basically, you bash your shield and you blind them for a second. Very good for pausing combat. But for the moment, we are using one of these. Whichever one I was using, I don't remember. They both work the same way. I'm going to assume it was that one. I could look back over the video and see what one I was using, but I'm not going to. Now, for the ranged weapon, we do have a few more options here. I've gone back to liking the Mark III on the shotgun because it does have the most damage and it has a higher ammo count. As you can see, the modifiers are exactly the same. Mobility is the dump. The only difference is one's built for flak and unyielding, the other one's built for maniac and flak. Blessings wise, execution and fire frenzy, they worked very well with this shotgun. Fire frenzy works pretty well because you have the 6 shots to be able to build it up to max. Now, we also have the quick draw stub revolver. Mobility again is the dump because we don't care about it. Perk wise, maniac and flak. Hand cannon and rending. This is a very, very old build for this pistol, but it still works. And it's basically the closest thing you'll get to on the Arbites to a sniper, because it's pinpoint accurate, and after a few seconds the crit just banks up. I mean, if you have to, you can also, you know, mag dump into a crusher and it still works just as well. Of course, if you're going to mag dump, you're not going to get the buff from the crit, but, you know, needs must as the devil drives. Now, with the shotgun, I know with the Mark III, the extra shot isn't super useful. I mean, it's good for shocking one target, but it's not exactly a game changer. But what is great about it is it's just ridiculously overpowered. You aim high enough and most standard enemies will just die because you'll take the head straight off. As you see there. And with Ogryns, you do the same thing, just aim for the face and keep firing. But in a pinch, the extra action shot though can help out. And it can lock a target down for you for, you know, a second or two. And of course, there's the Spearhead bolt gun. Very, very good. I have had reports from our delightful members, for example Chief, that the bolt gun is actually working better on the Arbites than it does on the Veteran. I still find it a bit clunky, but it is a very, very good weapon. If you wanted to build one, here is how. Mobility again is the dump. Perk wise is unyielding and maniac. Blessing wise, pinning fire and fire frenzy. I've been told you guys don't want me to read things, so I'm just letting you see it on stream and you can read it for yourself. But again, the bolt gun, it is now good enough that you can snipe if you need to. It is still slightly unwieldy, but the main thing the bolt gun is good at is its ability to just mag dump. Let's see how many shots it takes on the Arbites to open up a shield. I'd call that 6. So if you really have to, we'll try 4. It probably won't work. 4. 4, 6. We'll call it 5. There you go. We'll split the difference. Yeah, the Spearhead bolt gun is just, if you want everything in front of you to not be there, you have that. But you are, you know, losing some utility by not taking, say, the shotgun or the shot pistol. Now, the shot pistol. If you wanted to build this, of course, that's how you build it. Mobility is the dump. Flak and unyielding, or maniac and flak. Entirely depends on what difficulty you're playing and how confident you are in your ability. If you're worried about specials, obviously take maniac and flak. If you're more confident in it, unyielding and flak. Now, blessings wise, there are a few different ways to do it. We've got no respite and full bore, or we can go full bore and fire frenzy. I quite like no respite at the moment. Because we are a stagger machine, it's very, very useful. Now, the reason I like this is because not only is it pretty accurate and pretty reliable in taking something's head off, but when things get a bit spicy, obviously you've got a shield, so you can just absorb hits and take out what you need to. You will be reloading quite a lot of this weapon. And you're not exactly going to be gunning down the crushers with it, but you know. We've got the doggo for that. But it's a very amusing weapon. I like it. I jump between this and the shotgun quite a lot. There we go. There are all of the lovely weapon options for you. Let's jump into the build. So we're going to start off here with Hammer of Judgment. 10% melee attack speed for 3 seconds on hitting 3 or more enemies with a melee attack. Force of Will, replenishing toughness on staggering melee attack. As I said, we're very highly staggered on this class, and also down the bottom we are getting more stagger out of it. Close up, replenish 5% toughness on close kill. Walk it off, spending 1 stamina, replenishes 15% toughness over 3 seconds. Toughness damage reduction into remote detonation. Now, I've played with all of these, and I quite like remote detonation because, especially on higher difficulties, you can basically stun lock bosses just by continuously throwing your dog at it and then remote detonating. Then we've got a toughness here because we have to take it into Voltic Mandibles Augment. Your Cybermastiff electrocutes enemies it attacks for 5 seconds. This is very good for a lot of our blessings wise. You know, it helps if they're already electrocuted. Then we've got Imposing Force, gain plus 25% damage resistance for 5 seconds. And then part of the squad. Your Cybermastiff counts towards coherency. In addition, you and your allies in coherency gain additional 7.5% toughness reduction. Plus still, into Unleashed Brutality, your Cybermastiff prioritizes elites and specialist enemies and deals 25% damage to them. Some people don't take a keystone here at all. Some people take Go Get 'em, and some people take Lone Wolf. Those people would be wrong. I prefer taking Unleashed Brutality because the AI and the dog does really go for those specials. So I usually take this over Go Get 'em. And we're taking Castigator's Stance. Now, this thing is absolutely ridiculous, and it is an absolute lifesaver. This basically puts the game on easy mode for you. So for 10 seconds, you have 15% movement speed, 80% reduced damage taken, 100% reduced movement speed penalty from actions, but you cannot sprint, and who cares? But also, on activating this, you replenish all toughness. Now, the great thing about this is, do you have 100 pox bursters running towards you? Yeah, Castigator Stance, I don't care anymore. I've taken 3 hits from pox bursters on Auric, and they haven't broken my toughness because Castigator Stance has been on. It's a very silly ability and I love it, but the only add-on we're taking though is Writ of Execution. During Castigator Stance, each elite or specialist killed grants 5% damage lasting 10 seconds, stacking 10 times. So that's, you know, 50 damage. Well, 50% damage. But I mean, you don't have to take this if you want to put it into something else, say, I don't know, Priority Endowment or Withering Fire. I find this very meh. I know a lot of people swear by it. It's 5 seconds, it's not huge. So, down into Arbites Revelatum. 15% damage for 5 seconds on successful dodge. Into Justified Measures, 3% damage on successful attack, stacking 5 times, lasting 5 seconds. Going down into Street Smarts, gain 1 effective dodges and 25% dodge duration. And then we're grabbing Monstrosity Hunter. Plus 20% damage to Ogryns and Monstrosities. This is quite a nice meaty buff, which is why I've been building into it in a lot of my builds recently. Then we're jumping over here to Hold the Line. Staggered enemy grants 1 stack of plus 3% damage resistance on the next melee hit taken, stacking 5 times and lasting 8 seconds. Staggering non-human sized enemies grants 5 stacks, which would be Ogryns basically. And then we're taking basically all of these, and these are going to give us a huge amount of damage. This part of the tree is massive for damage, and a lot of people sleep on this side for some reason. They tend to build a lot up here, forgetting, and I know Razor Jaw Augment is incredibly broken, but it's about to be fixed, so I'm ignoring it. But they tend to take a lot up here, which is kind of overstacking defense and kind of sleeping on this end. Like, target the weak. Enemies staggered by your melee attacks take 15% more damage for 5 seconds. You stagger everything. The Emperor's Fist, 15% melee damage and 30% impact on the first enemy hit with each attack. There's no cooldown on this, it's just each attack does this. Weight of the Lex gain 15% damage for 5 seconds on heavy melee attack. Drive them back, pushing grants 75% cleave. This is crazy amounts of cleave. And then strike down, 15% melee rending on staggered enemies. Oh, sorry. My throat is closing up. So yeah, there's just a huge amount of damage on that side. And then we've got the Keystone Tree. Zealous Dedication, 2% critical strike chance on kill, 8 stacks, last 10 seconds. We don't really care about this, but it does get us into Execution Order. Periodically mark elite specials and bosses for Mercy Sanction. Killing a marked enemy replenishes 15% toughness. And your Cyber Massive does stuff that we don't really care about. But the whole thing about the Arbites is you are an elite and special hunter, and this just kind of pushes it to that nth degree. Because this isn't like some of the other classes where it picks, one at a time and you have to do that one. And like this will just start pinging all of them around you. So you will never be at a lack of targets to go for. Then we're grabbing No Lenience. You gain 10% rending for 8 seconds after a marked kill into Malacator. 50% cooldown reduction for 8 seconds after marked kill. That is for Castigator's stance. And then Keeping Protocol. Killing a marked enemy grants 1% damage versus and 1% damage against monstrosities. 30 stacks, lasts until the end of the mission. So again, quite early in, we will be at 50% monstrosity damage, which is just silly. And this is generally the build that I tend to run when I'm just playing for myself. So we've got the old Shockmaw. Generally, you can just hack and hew your way through anything you want. The amount of stagger you've got and also the stacking damage debuffs we have from both of the trees just puts us in a ridiculously good spot to just keep going. But as I said, the main point of the Arbites is you're not a horde clear, and I mean, you kind of are a monstrosity hunter, but mostly you are here hunting down specials. And the best way to do that, it's to hack your way through a horde like it's not even there, and to get to those pesky specials as quickly as possible. And what weapon loadout you choose to take, kind of, it changes it slightly, but not hugely. But if you wanted to be a little bit safer, I mean, you could take the Shock Maul and Suppression Shield that I showed earlier. You don't lose much damage, but you do gain a hell of a lot of defense. Because obviously, you can just soak up hits from gunners. And with the amount of stamina we've got and the stamina regen, we can pull that back pretty damn quickly. But there you go, folks. So the updated Arbites build for you. I would call this the standard meta for it. And if you disagree, it's up to you. Go for it. But if you do enjoy the build, though, please do like and subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications. It really does help us out. And I shall see you all for the next one. So until then, take it easy, and I'll see you later.